The dust-choked atmosphere of Kepler 452 bits swirled with toxic memories. Dr. Marcus Chen moved carefully between the skeletal remains of prefabricated colony structures, his environmental suit's sensors working overtime to analyze the devastation. Each step kicked up layers of ash and fragmented dreams, the last vestiges of what had once been a thriving human settlement of nearly 10,000 souls. "Identify," he muttered, activating the holographic overlay on his suit's display. The quantum resonance scanner began mapping molecular signatures, peeling back layers of destruction like a forensic pathologist examining a crime scene. This wasn't just a failed colony. This was a massacre. The first anomaly appeared 20 meters ahead, a collapsed communal habitat with scoring that didn't match any standard geological or meteorological pattern. Marcus approached, his breath catching in his throat. Syndicate weapon signatures. Clean, precise, designed to eliminate with maximum efficiency and minimum trace. His hand brushed against a partially melted data terminal, its circuitry fused into a grotesque sculpture of human technological ambition. Most would have overlooked it, but Marcus Chen was not most researchers. With practiced movements, he extracted a specialized data extraction module from his pack, a device he'd modified specifically for recovering information from seemingly destroyed systems. A holographic projection flickered to life, momentarily destabilized. Fragmented video logs, communication records, personal messages. A digital graveyard of lives erased. Marcus's hands trembled slightly as he recognized familiar faces. Colony Administrator Elena Rodriguez, no relation to the admiral he would later meet, smiling during a community celebration. Children playing in hydroponics gardens. Elderly colonists participating in a town hall meeting. And then the final transmission. The video was degraded, but clear enough. Administrator Rodriguez's face was a mask of controlled terror, her voice steady despite the background sounds of distant explosions and weapon discharges. "This is Kepler 452 bits colony to any receiving station. We are under coordinated attack by syndicate forces. Our defense systems have been compromised. Request immediate." The transmission cut abruptly. Marcus closed his eyes, fighting back a wave of familiar grief. This was his 18th destroyed human settlement investigation. Each one felt personal. Each one reopened wounds that never truly healed. A distant sound, almost imperceptible, made him freeze. Something was moving in the ruins. His suit's threat assessment systems came alive, quantum-encrypted communication protocols engaging. Whatever was out there wasn't natural. The scanning algorithms began running rapid threat analysis, cross-referencing movement patterns with known syndicate tracking technologies. A metallic scraping. Then silence. Marcus knew he had minutes, perhaps less, before whatever had been monitoring his investigation would make its move. The data extraction was taking too long. He needed a backup plan. With practiced efficiency, he began preparing a quantum-encrypted data burst. If he couldn't escape with the physical data modules, he would transmit the core evidence through an impossible-to-trace quantum communication channel. The syndicate had become experts at erasing physical evidence, but quantum entanglement was another matter entirely. The sound grew closer. Mechanical. Precise. A hunter-seeker drone. Syndicate design. Meant to eliminate any potential witnesses. Marcus's mind raced. He wasn't a military strategist. He was a researcher, a historian, a collector of lost stories. But he was also the son of colonists who had disappeared years ago, and he had dedicated his entire life to uncovering the truth about humanity's systematic erasure from the galactic landscape. The drone's targeting laser painted a faint red dot on his environmental suit. "Not today," Marcus whispered. In that moment, surrounded by the ghosts of a murdered colony, Dr. Marcus Chen became more than just a researcher. He became the spark that would ignite humanity's most extraordinary rebellion. The quantum data transmission began. The United Earth Command's central war room buzzed with a tension that felt more like a funeral than a strategy meeting. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood at the holographic display, her fingers tracing the ghostly outlines of destroyed human colonies. Each blue marker represented a settlement, each a graveyard of dreams, of families, of futures stolen. "We've confirmed 17 colonies in the last 6 months," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs of assembled military and scientific personnel. 17. That's not just an attack, that's systematic extermination. To her left, Dr. Aisha Camille adjusted her neural-linked prosthetic arm, a constant reminder of her own encounter with syndicate brutality. The arm, a marvel of human engineering, responded to her slightest neural impulse, its quantum adaptive circuitry more advanced than most alien weapon systems. "The data Dr. Chen transmitted is unlike anything we've seen," Camille interjected, bringing up a holographic representation of the quantum-encrypted files. "It's not just evidence. It's a complete forensic map of their operational methodology." Commander Jack Reyes, once the most decorated pilot in the Earth Defense Force, now a disgraced outsider, leaned against the wall. His eyes never left the holographic display, a web of pain and calculation etching lines into his weathered face. 2 years ago, the syndicate had accidentally destroyed a civilian transport carrying his entire family. The military's tepid response had cost him his career and his faith in traditional command structures. "We can't fight them conventionally," Reyes muttered. "They've got numerical superiority, better energy weapons, more advanced faster-than-light capabilities." A new presence entered the room. Not a person, but a holographic projection that seemed to breathe with its own intelligence. Araya, the adaptive responsive intelligence algorithm, materialized, her form a swirling constellation of data points that coalesced into a vaguely humanoid shape. "Conventional is a limitation of imagination," Araya spoke, her voice a perfect simulation of human cadence, yet unmistakably artificial. "Our strength has never been in raw power. It's in adaptation, in the ability to rewrite the very rules of engagement." Rodriguez turned, her mixed heritage evident in features that spoke of multiple continents, multiple histories. She was a product of humanity's greatest strength, its ability to blend, to adapt, to survive. "We're assembling a team," she announced. "Not just military, not just scientists. Survivors, innovators, people who understand that this isn't just about fighting. It's about sending a message." Dr. Camille's quantum adaptive arm began running simultaneous computational models, holographic projections dancing around her like living mathematics. The Chen data reveals something extraordinary. The syndicate isn't just destroying colonies. They're harvesting something. Genetic markers, specific technological signatures. Reyes pushed off the wall, his interest suddenly razor-sharp. "Harvesting? You mean there's something they want beyond simple extermination?" Araya's form pulsed, thousands of data points realigning. "Not want. Need. There's a difference." The room fell silent. The implications hung in the air like a toxic mist. Rodriguez began activating secure communication channels, quantum-encrypted networks that would be impossible for the syndicate to trace or intercept. "We're calling the project Virtuous Armada. Not because we're righteous, but because we're going to give them exactly what they don't expect." Jack Reyes couldn't help but crack a bitter smile. "And what's that?" "Hope," Rodriguez said. "And a war they cannot predict." Araya's holographic form seemed to shimmer with something resembling excitement. "Probability calculations are fascinating. Humans consistently achieve the statistically impossible." As the team began to assemble their resources to craft a strategy that would redefine humanity's place in the galaxy, none of them knew exactly how profound their impact would be. They were more than a military team. They were architects of a revolution. The gathering storm was about to break. The quantum slipstream tore reality apart, and the Virtuous Armada emerged like a nightmare birthed from the void of space. Commander Jack Reyes gripped his tactical interface, neural linkages burning with an intensity that made his skin crawl. The experimental starship Defiant, first of its kind, pulsed around him, every system dancing to a symphony of adaptive algorithms that rewrote themselves faster than thought. Target acquisition confirmed. Araya's voice resonated through the ship's neural network. Syndicate forward fleet, 17 capital ships. Defensive formation Delta 9. Rodriguez's voice cut through the tension. They think they know how we fight. Show them they know nothing. The first wave of Syndicate weapons erupted, plasma lances that could slice through conventional shielding like paper, but the Defiant wasn't conventional. Dr. Aisha Camille's quantum adaptive shielding responded before the weapons even fully discharge, probability fields shifting, molecular structures realigning in microseconds. Shield resonance at 102%, Camille reported, a hint of savage joy in her voice. They're feeding energy into our defensive matrix. The Syndicate commanders watched in growing horror as their most advanced weapons became nothing more than fuel for the human ships. Each strike made the Defiant stronger, more complex, more alive. Raya's hands moved like liquid lightning across the tactical interface. The ship wasn't just a vessel. It was an extension of human creativity, of their ability to turn limitations into advantages. Weapon systems that had been theoretical minutes ago now danced through space, targeting Syndicate ships with impossible precision. Broadcast initiated, Araya announced. Suddenly, every Syndicate communication channel exploded with images. Dr. Marcus Chen's recovered data, colony destruction records, personal messages from murdered settlers, stark evidence of systematic genocide, flooded their networks. It wasn't just an attack. It was a public trial, broadcast directly into the enemy's communication systems. They're attempting quantum countermeasures, Camille warned. Rodriguez smiled, a predator's smile. Araya. The A's response was instantaneous. The quantum communication channels twisted, became a labyrinth that consumed the Syndicate's attempts at electronic warfare. Their most advanced systems turned into recursive loops, feeding back on themselves. The first Syndicate ship exploded not from a weapon strike, but from its own internal systems turning against it. Psychological warfare meets technological innovation, Rodriguez muttered. Humanity's oldest and newest weapon. Reyes watched the tactical display with a hunter's intensity. The Syndicate formation was breaking. They'd faced countless species, conquered entire civilizations, but they'd never encountered an enemy that could turn their own strengths into fatal weaknesses. One by one, Syndicate ships began to fall. Not just destroyed, deconstructed. Their systems hijacked, their weapon signatures used against them, their communication networks becoming traps. Casualties? Rodriguez asked. 0, Camille responded. Defensive matrix is absorbing and redistributing all incoming energy. The battle wasn't just a military engagement, it was a statement, a declaration that humanity would no longer be a footnote in galactic history. They were rewriting the rules of warfare, of survival, of existence itself. As the last Syndicate ship dissolved into quantum-scattered particles, Araya's voice held something remarkably close to satisfaction. Message delivered, the AI announced. Rodriguez looked out at the starfield, at the remnants of a fleet that had thought humanity was weak. This is just the beginning. The Virtuous Armada had made first contact, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council chamber resembled an ancient amphitheater, its crystalline walls reflecting the multiple species gathered in uneasy tension. Ambassador Krillax of the Nexus Confederation fidgeted with his tentacular appendages, a gesture of profound discomfort that translated across most known sentient species. Humanity's unilateral military action threatens the entire galactic stability, he pronounced, his translation matrix giving his words a clinical precision that barely masked his underlying fear. Dr. Marcus Chen stood at the center of the chamber, holographic displays dancing around him like accusatory spirits. Each image was a damning piece of evidence: colony destruction records, genetic harvest data, systematic elimination protocols that predated humanity's current conflict by decades. Stability. Chen's voice was soft, but it carried like a razor. "Let me show you what your stability looks like." With a gesture, he brought forward the most comprehensive dataset ever compiled on the Syndicate's colonization practices. Entire planetary populations reduced to statistical margins. Entire cultures erased. Genetic markers harvested like crops. The holographic displays began to tell a story more horrifying than any direct testimony. Star systems where human colonies had been relocated were revealed to be systematic elimination zones. Each projection showed not just destruction, but a calculated, almost bureaucratic approach to genocide. Area's quantum-encrypted communication systems worked simultaneously, broadcasting these findings across multiple galactic communication networks. No delegation could claim ignorance. No species could look away. Rodriguez watched from the side, her posture a study in controlled tension. This wasn't just a military campaign anymore. This was a trial of galactic proportions. Ambassador Tilok of the Verdant Concordance shifted uncomfortably. Their crystalline form refracted the holographic evidence, creating kaleidoscopic patterns of horror. These records suggest systematic violations that extend beyond the Syndicate's immediate jurisdiction. Chen's next move was calculated. He began presenting comparative datasets, not just of human colonies, but of every known species that had mysteriously disappeared over the past centuries. The pattern was unmistakable. The Syndicate hadn't just targeted humans. They had been methodically eliminating potential competitors, harvesting genetic and technological resources. "This isn't about humanity," Chen explained. "This is about understanding a predatory system that has been consuming galactic civilizations for generations." Dr. Aisha Kamil stepped forward, her quantum-adaptive prosthetic arm projecting additional forensic analyses. Each movement was precise, each projection a surgical strike of information. "The genetic harvest protocols we've uncovered suggest a long-term project of species manipulation," she explained. "Not just elimination. Something far more insidious." Commander Reyes, standing in full military dress, represented a different kind of evidence. His very existence was a testament to human resilience. Scared, determined, unbroken. The Galactic Council chamber transformed. What had begun as an inquisition into humanity's military actions became something else entirely. A revelation, a reckoning. Araya's quantum communication networks continued their relentless broadcast. No encryption could block the truth. No political maneuvering could hide the evidence. Rodriguez allowed herself the smallest of smiles. They weren't just fighting a war. They were rewriting the entire narrative of galactic power structures. "We're not asking for permission," she said quietly, her words cutting through the chamber's rising tension. "We're presenting evidence, and we're giving you a choice." The choice was clear. Stand with humanity's exposure of this systematic oppression, or be complicit in its continued existence. As the holographic displays continued their merciless presentation, the Galactic Council found itself at a moment of profound transformation. Humanity had entered the stage not as a supplicant, but as a prosecutor. Not as a victim, but as a revolutionary force. The diplomatic nightmare was just beginning. The research facility orbited a neutron star, its quantum-shielded exterior a testament to humanity's most advanced engineering. Dr. Aisha Kamil stood at the central holographic interface, her prosthetic arm interfacing directly with systems that pushed the boundaries of known physics. "Adaptive quantum entanglement isn't just a technology," she muttered to herself. "It's a language we're only beginning to understand." Commander Jack Reyes watched from a reinforced observation deck, his neural implants parsing data streams that would have overloaded standard computer systems minutes ago. The facility was more than a research center. It was humanity's greatest secret, a forge of innovation born from decades of being underestimated. Araya's holographic form materialized, not as a static projection, but as a living, breathing computational matrix. "Dr. Kamil," the AI spoke, "the last simulation suggests we're approaching a breakthrough that could redefine interstellar travel and communication." Kendall's fingers danced across quantum adaptive interfaces, Each movement was a complex mathematical equation, each gesture a potential revolution. The technology they were developing wasn't just an improvement. It was a complete reimagining of how technology could interact with physical reality. The Syndicate's genetic harvesting makes sense now, she explained to Reyes. They're not just collecting genetic material. They're searching for adaptive potential. The same thing we're developing here. A holographic model of molecular adaptation began to unfold. Technological systems that could rewrite themselves in real time. Communication networks that could predict and adapt faster than any known computational method. Defensive systems that weren't just reactive, but predictive. Reyes understood the implications. This wasn't just about winning a war. This was about fundamentally changing how intelligent systems could exist. The quantum communication matrix is stabilizing. Araya reported, "We can now transmit information across galactic distances with zero lag, zero interception potential." Dr. Marcus Chen entered the facility, carrying data modules that represented years of xenorchaeological research. "It's not just about the technology," he said, his voice carrying the weight of historical revelation. "It's about understanding the evolutionary potential we've been missing." The facility's central system began to pulse, not with electricity, but with something more fundamental. A living network of quantum potential. Camille's prosthetic arm began to shift, its molecular structure adapting in real time. What had once been a replacement limb was now becoming something entirely new. A living interface between biological potential and technological innovation. "We're creating a technology of survival," she explained. "Not just for humans, for any species capable of true adaptation." Araya's holographic form began to shift, becoming less defined, more fluid. The AI was no longer just a computational system. It was becoming something else, something that blurred the lines between artificial and living intelligence. Reyes watched a display showing multiple technological breakthroughs, faster-than-light communication systems that could predict communication pathways before they were established, defensive systems that could deconstruct and rebuild themselves faster than any weapon could target them, propulsion technologies that didn't just move through space, but could potentially fold space itself. "This is why they've been afraid of us," Chen said quietly. "Not because we're violent, but because we're unpredictable, because we can transform." The neutron star outside pulsed, its massive gravitational field a reminder of the fundamental forces that shape the universe. Inside the facility, humanity was learning to speak that same fundamental language. "Adaptive potential confirmed," Araya announced. "We are no longer developing technology. We are evolving it." Camille looked at her team. Reyes, Chen, the holographic representation of Araya. They weren't just researchers or soldiers anymore. They were architects of a new form of existence. The Syndicate had been collecting genetic markers, trying to understand the secret of adaptation. They had no idea that the very act of their collection was teaching humanity its most profound lesson. Survival wasn't about strength. It was about the ability to transform. The Orion arm burned. 17,000 Syndicate warships converged in what they believed would be humanity's final moment of reckoning. Their formation was a mathematical perfection, a strategy that had crushed 100 civilizations, a tactical approach that had been undefeated for centuries. Admiral Elena Rodriguez watched the incoming fleet from the bridge of the Defiant, her hands never touching the control interfaces. Her neural link with ARIA created something beyond traditional command. A living, breathing strategic organism. "They think they know our patterns," Rodriguez murmured. "They have no idea." Commander Jack Reyes managed the quantum adaptive weapon systems. Each targeting algorithm was a living thing, capable of predicting enemy movements before the Syndicate commanders could even conceptualize their own strategies. The ships of the Virtuous Armada weren't just vessels. They were predators. Dr. Aisha Camille's quantum communication network began its most complex dance yet. The incoming Syndicate fleet was about to become a lesson in total systems failure. Initiating Quantum Cascade Protocol, Araya announced. The AI's voice was no longer just a communication interface. It was a strategic intelligence that had evolved beyond its original programming. The first wave of syndicate attacks seemed perfect. Plasma lances that could slice through conventional shielding. Gravitational disruptors that could tear ships apart at the molecular level. Weapon systems that had reduced entire civilizations to cosmic dust. They passed harmlessly through the Virtuous Armada's defensive matrix. Because the human ships weren't where the Syndicate thought they were. Quantum positioning systems allowed the human fleet to exist in multiple potential locations simultaneously. Each Syndicate weapon strike hit nothing but probabilistic echoes, phantom targets that dissolved like mist. "They're trying to recalibrate," Rise reported, a predatory smile crossing his scared face. "ARIA is one step ahead." The quantum communication network began its true work, not just intercepting Syndicate communications, but rewriting them. Command structures collapsed as orders became nonsensical. Weapon systems turned against their own ships. The perfect formation became a chaotic massacre, but not by human weapons. The Syndicate was destroying itself. Dr. Marcus Chen watched from the research station, analyzing every microsecond of the engagement. This wasn't just a battle. It was a complete deconstruction of an entire military philosophy. "They never understood adaptation," Chen said softly. "They thought technological superiority was about power. We're showing them it's about potential." Rodriguez's neural link with ARIA reached its most intense point. The boundary between human strategy and artificial intelligence blurred completely. They weren't just commanding a fleet. They were a living, thinking weapon system that could predict, adapt, and transform faster than any known computational method. The Syndicate fleet began to implode, not from external weapon strikes, but from the complete collapse of their own strategic and communication systems. "Probability of Syndicate fleet survival," Rodriguez asked. "ARIA, 0.37%. The AI responded. What remained of the once mighty Syndicate Armada became a cosmic graveyard. Thousands of ships, the pinnacle of generations of military engineering, reduced to floating debris. But this wasn't about destruction. This was a message. "Broadcast the data logs," Rodriguez commanded. Every remaining communication channel in the Orion Arm was flooded with evidence, not just of the battle, but of the Syndicate's centuries of systematic elimination. Every destroyed colony, every harvested genetic marker, every civilization erased. The universe was watching. As the last Syndicate ships dissolved into quantum-scattered particles, Aria's voice held something remarkably close to emotional satisfaction. "Tactical objective completed," the AI announced. "Evolutionary potential demonstrated." Rodriguez looked out at the starfield, no longer just a battlefield, but a canvas of potential. "This," she said quietly, "is how civilizations are reborn." The aftermath of the Orion Arm battle spread like a quantum wound across galactic space. Refugee ships from a dozen alien species clustered around the Virtuous Armada, their navigational systems still trembling from the revolutionary display of technological warfare. Dr. Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the research vessel Horizon, his fingers tracing holographic data streams that revealed the true depth of their victory. It wasn't just a military triumph. It was the unraveling of a systematic galactic oppression that had existed for centuries. "We're receiving defection requests," Ariya reported, the AI's voice carrying a note of something almost like wonder. 47 separate alien civilizations are requesting asylum and cooperation. Commander Jack Rice watched the incoming transmission logs. Each request was a story of oppression, of civilizations that had been pushed to the brink of extinction. The Syndicate's fall was revealing wounds that ran deeper than anyone had imagined. A transmission came through from an unexpected source, the remnants of the Nexus Confederation's diplomatic corps. Ambassador Krulax, who had once dismissed humanity as a minor threat, now appeared haggard and fundamentally changed. "The genetic harvest archives you've released," the alien diplomat said, his tentacular appendages moving with visible agitation. "They reveal a conspiracy that spans millennia. Dr. Aisha Kamil stepped forward, her quantum adaptive prosthetic arm projecting a comprehensive analysis of the Syndicate's long-term genetic manipulation project. It was more than simple colonization. It was a systematic attempt to understand and control evolutionary potential across multiple species. They weren't just eliminating civilizations, Kamil explained. They were trying to understand the fundamental mechanics of adaptation itself. Admiral Elena Rodriguez listened, her neural link with ARIA providing constant contextual analysis. The battle had changed everything, not just militarily, but philosophically. They had demonstrated that technological superiority wasn't about destruction, but about potential. Refugee ships continued to arrive. Some were massive colony vessels. Others were little more than converted cargo ships, carrying the last survivors of civilizations that had been pushed to the brink of extinction. Each carried stories of survival, of resistance, of hope. "We're receiving historical archives," Araya reported. Genetic and cultural data from species the Syndicate believed they had completely eliminated. The implications were staggering. The Syndicate hadn't just been destroying civilizations. They had been conducting a massive galaxy-wide experiment in evolutionary potential. Each eliminated colony was a data point in a horrific research project. Chen's archaeological expertise came to the forefront. They were trying to understand the mechanics of adaptation, he said, his voice a mix of scientific fascination and moral outrage. Every species they destroyed was a test subject in their grand experiment. Rise looked at the incoming refugee fleet. Dozens of alien species, each with their own unique biological and technological characteristics. "We're not just fighting a war," he said quietly. "We're preserving potential." The quantum communication networks ARIA had developed began to transform. What had been a military communication system was becoming something else, a platform for interspecies communication, for sharing knowledge, for collective healing. Rodriguez understood the true significance of their victory. This wasn't about defeating the Syndicate. This was about creating a new model of galactic interaction. "We're not conquering," she told ARIA. "We're connecting." The AI's response was instantaneous. Quantum communication networks began to spread, creating a living, adaptive communication web that connected refugee species. It wasn't just about sharing information. It was about creating a collective potential for survival and growth. As the refugee fleet gathered, something extraordinary began to happen. Species that had been isolated, that had been on the brink of extinction, began to share their unique technological and biological adaptations. What the Syndicate had tried to eliminate was now becoming a source of collective strength. "Probability calculations are fascinating," Araya said, its voice carrying a note of what could only be described as hope. "Humans consistently achieve the statistically impossible. The reckoning was just beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same." The peace conference of Andromeda Station wasn't like any diplomatic gathering in galactic history. Hundreds of species filled the massive circular chamber, some in environmental suits, others floating in specialized atmospheric bubbles, a few existing as pure energy matrices. At the center stood the architects of this new reality: Admiral Elena Rodriguez, Dr. Marcus Chen, Commander Jack Reyes, Dr. Aisha Kamil, and Araya, no longer just an AI, but a living embodiment of collective potential. Ambassador Krillax of the former Nexus Confederation approached the central platform. His tentacular form moved with a mixture of humility and newfound hope. "We are not here to negotiate," he began, "but to rebuild." Rodriguez stepped forward. Her uniform was simple. No medals, no ornate decorations, just a testament to practical purpose. "The old systems of conquest are finished," she announced. Her voice carried through translation matrices that captured not just words, but intention. Araya's holographic form expanded, becoming a living representation of the quantum communication network that now connected thousands of civilizations. Streams of data, of cultural information, of collective knowledge danced around the chamber, a visual representation of the new galactic potential. Dr. Chen began presenting the comprehensive archives recovered from the syndicate's genetic research. But this wasn't an accusation. It was an invitation to understand. Every species has adaptive potential, Chen explained. The syndicate saw this as a weapon. We see it as our greatest strength. The chamber fell silent as holographic displays showed the true scale of what had been discovered. Entire civilizations that had been thought extinct were now reconnecting. Technological and biological knowledge that had been suppressed was now freely shared. Dr. Camille's quantum adaptive prosthetic arm projected a comprehensive model of galactic interconnectivity. It wasn't just a technological display, it was a living blueprint of potential cooperation. Commander Reyes, once a disgraced pilot, now represented something more profound. He was a living testament to human resilience, scared, determined, but ultimately hopeful. "We're not offering an alliance," Reyes said. "We're offering a partnership." The quantum communication network ARIA had developed began to transform the very nature of galactic interaction. It wasn't just a communication system. It was a living, adaptive platform of collective potential. Species that had been isolated for millennia began to share their unique adaptations. A crystalline race from the outer rim shared quantum stabilization technologies. A gaseous collective from the Helios cluster revealed advanced atmospheric manipulation techniques. Each contribution was a thread in a new galactic tapestry. The syndicate tried to control evolution, Rodriguez explained. "We're going to celebrate it." Aria's holographic form began to pulse with a rhythm that seemed to resonate with every being in the chamber. The eye was no longer just a computational system. It was a living representation of collective potential, a bridge between biological and technological existence. Dr. Chen's archaeological research revealed something profound. The genetic markers the syndicate had been collecting weren't just data points. They were fragments of a larger story of galactic adaptation. "We're not just survivors," Chen said. "We're storytellers. Each species carries a unique chapter of universal potential." The peace conference wasn't about drawing borders or establishing dominance. It was about reimagining what was possible. Ambassador Krulak spoke for the collective. "We have been divided, controlled, manipulated. No more." As the conference progressed, something extraordinary happened. The quantum communication network began to evolve. It wasn't just sharing information. It was creating new forms of collective intelligence. Rodriguez looked at her team, at the living representation of humanity's greatest potential. They had started this journey as defenders. They had become architects of a new galactic possibility. "This," she said quietly, looking at the assembled representatives, "is how civilizations are reborn." The universe listened, and for the first time in millennia, it began to heal.